All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a case that's, well, it's incredibly difficult to talk about, but it's just as important to understand. It's a story of just unimaginable cruelty and, frankly, systemic failure that unfolded over 44 horrifying days in the winter of '88 and '89.
So, this is the story of Junko Furuta. She was just 17 years old, and what happened to her sent absolute shockwaves, not just through Japan, but around the world. And to really understand the sheer depth of this tragedy, we can't just jump into the crime. We have to start with the person, with the life that was so brutally taken away.
So let's talk about who Junko Furuta was. Before everything went so horribly wrong in late 1988, she was a popular, really smart high school senior. I mean, she was literally on the verge of starting her whole life with this bright, promising future ahead of her.
And you can see here, Junko was so ambitious, so studious. She already had a job lined up after graduation. She was working part-time to save up for a trip. I mean, she was this driven, clean-living teenager, just the complete and total opposite of the high school dropouts who would tragically cross her path on the evening of November 25th, 1988.
Okay, so let's get into how this whole nightmare started. And what's so chilling is that it didn't begin with some random act of violence. It began with a calculated, incredibly cruel act of deception.
So, picture this. Junko's just cycling home from her part-time job. Suddenly, she's deliberately knocked off her bike by one boy. And then another one, Hiroshi Miyano, swoops in, pretending to be a hero, offering to help her. Her trust? It was just completely manipulated. He takes her not home, but to a suburban house in Adachi, Tokyo, and that's where she would be held captive for the next 44 days.
Now, what began with this core group of 4 perpetrators, it didn't stay that way for long. It spiraled, and fast. That small house where Junko was being held, it turned into a hub for just unimaginable cruelty, pulling in a truly shocking number of other people.
Yeah, up to 100 people. I mean, think about that for a second. The 4 main captors, they didn't even try to keep it a secret. It's insane, but they actually bragged about what they were doing, inviting dozens of other people over to participate in the abuse. It created this staggering, horrifying web of complicity. Some reports say as many as 100 people either knew about it or were directly involved.
And that leads to the question that just hangs over this entire horrible story. Why didn't anyone help? You've got all these people, including the parents of one of the boys, living right there in the house. We even know that at least one person's brother did report it to the police, but nothing happened. No action was taken. So what on earth went wrong here?
Let's talk about Shinji Minato's parents, because they were absolutely aware that Junko was in their house. And what's so chilling is the difference between what they said and what they did. They claimed they were too scared to do anything, fear of their son, his Yakuza friends, their reputation. But their actions tell a totally different story. They didn't just fail to act. No, they were actively part of the cover-up. They lied to police officers who came to the house and even cleaned up evidence of the abuse. It's just beyond comprehension.
So this relentless, horrific abuse went on for more than a month. Junko's resilience through all of this was just extraordinary. But this ordeal was always heading toward a brutal, tragic end.
In this timeline, it really only shows a tiny fraction of what she endured. I mean, on day 3, they forced her to call her own mother and lie, to say she'd run away. She tried to escape, twice. On day 9, she begged Shinji's mother for help, but she was just handed back to her captors. Then she tried calling the police, but got caught. And on day 44, after all that, the final, fatal assault was triggered because her captors lost a game of mahjong. A game! It's just senseless.
And then, after she was gone, look at what they did. The steps they took to hide what they'd done. They wrap her body in a blanket, stuff it in a duffel bag, put that inside a huge metal drum, and then fill the whole thing with concrete before dumping it at a construction site. The sheer detachment, the cold, calculated effort to just erase her. It's absolutely chilling.
This crime could have easily gone unsolved. It was discovered completely by accident. 2 months later, the ringleader, Hiroshi Miyano, gets arrested for something totally unrelated. The police start questioning him about a different murder, and he just panics. He thought one of his friends had already ratted him out about Junko, so he starts confessing to everything. It was a stupid mistake on his part that finally led the police to find her body.
So Junko's body was found, and the trial that followed absolutely rocked Japan. The details were just horrifying.
But if you think the story ends with justice being served, well, that's where the next part of this tragedy begins. The outcome of the trials sparked even more outrage and raised some really serious questions about the entire justice system.
Just look at these sentences. This right here is what so many people point to as the central injustice of this entire case. Despite the absolute horror of what they did, for 44 days straight, these four were all tried as minors. And because of that, they got sentences that were, frankly, shockingly light. The ringleader, Miyano, got 20 years. The others, way, way less. It caused a massive outcry across the country, and for good reason.
And the failure of the justice system didn't stop with those sentences. It just gets worse. Because they were minors, their identities were sealed by the court, protected. It took a news magazine defying a court order to even get their names out to the public. And what about Shinji's parents, the ones who literally enabled this whole thing, or the dozens of other accomplices? No charges, not a single one. And maybe the most disturbing part of all, 3 of the 4 have reoffended since they got out. They've gone on to commit more crimes.
So, in the end, the final word here really shouldn't belong to her killers. It belongs to the people who loved her. This quote from a eulogy read by one of her friends is just so powerful. It's a call to action, right? To remember Junko's life, not just the horror of how she died, and to fight like hell against the kind of cruelty and, just as importantly, the indifference that let something like this happen.